gentlemen, Ben Catley. He is deep into a UK tour at the moment, which is amazing that he's in Singapore. He's just released a new single. It's the second of his forthcoming EP, Epic Heart. He's just finished a New Zealand tour supporting the Pierce Brothers, Tijuana Cartel, and Ash Grunwald, who has previously played at Music Matters. He is having a hectic year on the road, so hectic that he's actually taken his shoes and socks off. He blew us away in Clark Key on the weekend, and we're absolutely thrilled that he's going to be here to perform to you live at All That Matters. So please give a massive All That Matters welcome. He's a Geordie, but he lives in Australia. Please go crazy for Ben Catley.
Afternoon, everybody. Well, it's quite the pleasure to be here. Hope you're feeling good. I know it's only early in the day, so I'm going to try and keep it easy going. It's a song called Strong Hands. Cheers. Rough around the edges, without a gold, we're soft at the end. We strong hands too.
be strong, hands to hold.
Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. My name's Ben Catley. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the shoeless Ben Catley. How am I supposed to follow that? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're just going to reset the set here, put some chairs out. The rest of the afternoon is dedicated to music and some really, really cool content. Up next, we're going to talk about, actually it's not dedicated to music, because the next session is about music and sport and gaming, live events. Talk about that in a second. Then we have a fantastic little YouTube surprise. So hang around for that. Andrew Jenkins, who runs Universal Publishing, is here to talk about music publishing in the region, a very, very important topic, of course. And then it's all about China. I don't know if any of you were at the Tencent Music Connects event we did in Beijing in June, but the general feeling from the entire planet is that China will be the world's #1 music market. It's not if, but when. And so a lot of people this afternoon are going to be talking about China, the China opportunity, and how to succeed. There really are a lot of companies now who are making it in China. We've never said that before. And then, of course, we have the wonderful Cascade. DJ Cascade is on stage this afternoon, and then the Tencent pool party. So we've got to cram quite a lot in, so I need to stop talking so much. So the next session is all about live events and producing live events that matter, and it's something that's very close, obviously, to my heart, because that's what we do. We said that the live sports and entertainment industry is booming. It really is around Asia, from India to China, through Japan and Australia. But producing live events that matter can be, and I know this, a major financial risk. So we're going to be talking about things like ticketing, sponsorship, venues, safety, marketing, and tech in one of the genuine cross-track sessions this afternoon. So I'm very, very happy that we have the music, sport, and gaming industries all covered here this afternoon with 3 phenomenal people. So please welcome, firstly, Vice President of Business Development of Lagardère Sport, Mr. Malcolm Thorpe.
No sleep till.
Please also welcome the COO of AEG, Marshall New. And then the new kid on the block, which would have been better music, Oscar Feng, the founder and CEO of Global Esports Championships. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, how are we? Live events.
Very good.
Do they matter?
They matter a lot.
I'm going to go straight into this. We produce, between the 4 of us, we produce a lot of events. Is there a ticket buying culture in Asia Pacific?
It depends what your content is. There are, for the right content, people will buy tickets. If you don't have the right content, you can try as hard as you can, as you might, but you won't sell the tickets you want to sell.
But I think, you know, you're on the sports side. When you know, I was a kid, I had an Arsenal shirt put over my back, and you go and pay for a ticket, and you support your local club forever. And does that exist yet in Asia in the sports industry? Is there a club culture? Is there fandom?
Not to the same extent, particularly in sports. And part of the challenge, and has been for many years in Asia, is the fact that those clubs that you supported and I support from back in Europe are dominant and overpower the ability of some of the local content to grow and build that fandom for themselves.
So maybe we should be talking about what the clubs need to be doing to build that fan base and to start, building value and what have you. Marshall, tell me about the music industry. I mean, I know you're based in China, but AEG now, it covers the whole of Asia Pacific pretty much, right?
Yeah, so right now we're based in Shanghai, but we are looking pretty actively to expand into some of the other tier 1 markets in Asia, really more on the real estate side. Our business is kind of vertically integrated where we own or operate the venues, be it an arena or a club, and then we'll program that venue with content that either we produce or other people's content. So kind of what we call it open venues. But I think for us, what we're excited about is the hunger for international content in Asia, be it sports, be it music, and it all comes down to the quality and to kind of the scarcity of what content is coming. Outside of kind of maybe football clubs, which have built-in fan bases, if you look at, when we do Ed Sheeran in Asia last year, that was huge sellout right off the bat because he's Ed Sheeran. There's only one of them. If you look at some other tours we've done from international artists, those might require a little bit more marketing support. And how you market that as well is specific to the actual region that you're producing the event in. But ultimately, content is king. And if you've got great quality content and a great environment or atmosphere to present that content, usually we see the tickets move pretty quickly.
So tell us some of the shows you've promoted over the last 6 months. It's quite varied, right?
Yeah, I mean, we dabble in sports. We did the ICC here in Singapore, that match, the football match. We've done, Ed Sheeran, Katy Perry. We're doing Sam Smith, which has been fantastic so far, the ticket sales. We're doing Jessie J in China. We're doing the NBA exhibition games as well in China. That'll be the Dallas Mavericks and the Philadelphia 76ers. And at our actual venues, we'll do Esports, we'll do all sorts of other concerts from even our competitors or local sports. I will say in Asia, though, it's a bit, the sports content's probably a little bit less than it is in Europe or in America. You don't see a lot of venues in Asia with anchor sports tenants, which is really how it is in the West, and part of the economics are built around that. So I think for us, the exciting opportunity is looking at the tier 1 cities where it is ready for kind of a brand new 18 to 20,000 seat arena, and then getting that content commitment there to make the economics work, and really around the commercialization part. That's really where most of the revenue in Asia we see for arenas come from, the commercial partners, the sponsors, the naming rights partner.
We'll come back to venues in a sec, because I know we all have varied thoughts on the quality of venues in Asia as well. And Oscar, before I get to you, Mal, I very rudely didn't introduce you properly. We don't know. Tell us a little bit about Lagardère and the kind of events that you're producing and involved in.
We were just talking about it backstage. We're just getting into a really busy time for us. We've got the WTA finals here in Singapore next month, followed by in November both the ASEAN Football Federation Suzuki Cup, which is a biannual national championships for Southeast Asia. We've also got that month the Australian Open Golf, and then at the beginning of the new year we've got the Singapore Open Golf, and also the biggest event we do, which is the Asian Cup football in Dubai.
So you're busy then?
A little bit.
And are you looking forward to Miss Williams turning up and beating up a few? Oscar, you're the new kid on the block. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the company, and some of the events that you're producing.
Yeah, so GESC, Global Esports Championship, new company. I founded the business less than 2 years ago, and the point was very simply to create the defining esports events brand here in Southeast Asia. Obviously, we all know, and haven't seen some of the panels from earlier today, just how much demand there is for gaming and for esports, how many fans there are in this region. And personally, I just saw that there was a lack of not just big events, but well-executed events. So we wanted to solve that problem. We've done 2 events so far, both in Indonesia and Thailand. Both were the biggest esports competitions in the history of those countries. Going back to your question about ticketing, obviously in founding this business, we had to really, I mean, that's a, you know, whether people would actually come out and buy tickets and go to the event live was a huge thing that we had to tackle. Lots of people, both in Indonesia and in Thailand, were saying to us, no, you know, people aren't going to come out and buy tickets to these events. But, you know, we sold thousands of tickets in both countries. Our Indonesia event sold out in less than 72 hours. It was the first ticketed esports event in the country's history. So I think by all those data points, yeah, people will come. Obviously, like you said, content is king. People want to see stars. People want to see the best of the best. And that is true for esports just as it is for sports, for music, any kind of entertainment. And people want to go to an event where they know that the stars are there, they're going to have a good time, the stars are going to be able to perform well, and I think we were able to achieve all of that just in our first few months of operations.
So, well, congratulations, obviously, in order.
Thank you.
And was it local talent, athletes, gamers, or was it
The
international?
players were, for the most part, global. So representatives from Europe, China, North America. We did have local teams as well. We wanted that very much. So for each event, we had one representative from the local market, just to be able to build a story of creating local heroes. But it was really the big global stars that people came out to come see.
So we talked about content is king. What sells?
Premium.
For you, what sells?
Premium. And that might be international premium, or it might be local premium. And it depends on who you're trying to sell it to. I mean, Southeast Asia, the biggest event there is the FF Suzuki Cup that I mentioned earlier. Thousands of people coming to the games to support their national team in the country's #1 sport. So that,
And they're paying.
they're paying, but they're not paying a lot.
But they're paying.
But they're
okay.
prepared to pay. So
5 years ago, you wouldn't have said that.
well, they're paying a little less. But yeah, so it's about what's important is content that engages people, and the content has got to be relevant to them, you know, to get them to get out of their homes, go down the street. You know, the whole event experience starts with even just buying a ticket. How easy is it to A, know an event is going on, B, get a ticket for it, get to the venue, get in, enjoy it, get away again, get home again. So you've got to get all of that right, and if you're getting all of that right, then you have a chance.
So premium local to you is local international football. Local international?
In Southeast Asia, that's what drives people, because the competition
Inter-country
in
football.
Southeast Asia, the biggest rivalries are between the countries. So putting a competition on between, in football, the #1 sport in the region, at that level, driving on those rivalries, that's what makes that work.
Marshall, what sells for AEG?
It's interesting because we look at, you know, events that we either take risk on or we kind of produce on behalf of someone for a fee. So I think in a B2B context, right, if we're thinking about just, you know, how to put on a successful event and what kind of content, it's really finding, the right content, but also the right partners and the right venue. For us, if, you know, what we see now, and I'm sure Malcolm can attest to this, is a lot of international brands or teams or clubs coming in, and they know that it's going to be a few years to build up the following. So really, you know, they're less concerned about the box office receipts in terms of the gross. They just want butts and seats, and they want some marketing and some hype around an event that is produced, you know, really well for their players and for the fans. So, you know, on one hand, there is a lot more interest now of clubs coming in. For example, we own the LA Kings in Los Angeles, the hockey team. So we helped, together with a local partner in China, produce their one of the first hockey games for the NHL in China last year, which is, you know, a very cool thing. Successful, we didn't sell many tickets, but it's a process, and it's something that the LA Kings have committed to build their brand, and looking in Asia, looking specifically in China, the billion-plus people there as a potential marketplace to grow into. So we look at that, but we're also looking at shows like an Ed Sheeran to come in, or like a Celine Dion who we just did, that have their own following in Asia and don't come out that much. And so if you can work with an artist like that, you can be very successful and sell out. I think what's important, though, is success for the artist a lot of times is success for the promoter. Sometimes it's not always the case. The artist can be making a lot of money, the promoter's not making any money. But really it comes down to the type of venue that you're in and the scale. So if you can do, the artist is going to play the show in front of 20,000 people or 5,000 people. It's the same show. The more tickets you can sell, the more money everybody makes. So it's about finding the right venues as well for a specific type of artist, having those economics work for everybody, and then ultimately putting on the best experience for the fans. So I think for us, a lot of it is around finding the right venue of the right size for the right artist, where it's a win-win-win for everybody: the venue, the fan, the promoters, and the artist, and ultimately, yes, the fan.
Question to all three of you. Sponsorship is obviously a very important part of the sports and media, music and entertainment business. Are you finding an uplift in sponsors? Are you finding them easier to work with, harder to work with? Is there more money out there? Is there less money out there? How's it going in the sports business?
It's up and down. I think it's changing. Sponsors are looking for something different. I mean, and it's been true for a little while that they're no longer happy with just buying a piece of wood on the side of a grass field. So the partnerships are much more engaging. People are not just looking at an event as, okay, there are that many people in the audience and hopefully I'm getting some media coverage as well, and value might be in the media. They want to build experiences with the fans, with the people there that are going to be engaging with that content wherever it is. So the type of partnerships that you have to build around an event with a brand, and it's leading more into brands looking to create events as their own branded content. I mean, you could say that there is definitely a drive towards that. Brands want to own the space entirely and be able to control exactly what's going on.
And long may there be more of them. There is a really cool sponsorship session, I think, tomorrow, where there'll be, we have brands on stage and stuff. But Marshall, AEG, I know that concerts are quite hard to work with on sponsors. It's in and out, 2 hours. Artists maybe not willing to do much, or how are AEG finding the sponsorship market?
Yeah, actually, sponsorship for AEG is really one of the crux of our business model, and that's really investing in the real estate and then using that platform as a way for our commercial partners and sponsors to engage with the fan. So we're more agnostic to sponsoring events directly and more around finding long-term commercial partners for the venues itself.
So when you say real estate, you mean real estate?
Venues,
You mean the venue. You own venues, you build venues, like the Mercedes Arena and...
Yeah, so Mercedes-Benz Arena, that's a great example. We've got a few of them around the world. The latest one in Shanghai, that was a long-term deal with one of our global partners, Mercedes-Benz, and they're all about engagement and activation. And as long as we can produce high-quality content and get fans through the doors, for them, they see those as eyeballs that they can engage with through the naming rights as well, having Mercedes-Benz on the walls, but more importantly through deeper activations, and also even the data that we're able to gather around the fans to help them build a better connection with a future customer of theirs or an existing customer that they want to continue to nurture that relationship with. So for us, that's what's exciting about what we're doing in Asia. We were one of the first companies in the West to pioneer this model of commercializing private arenas and venues. A lot of times they were government-run or municipalities built for the Olympics, kind of one and done, but we've really tapped into the corporate market hospitality, and using entertainment as a way to connect again with your partners or with your future customers. So that's what we're excited to bring into Asia as well. We did the blueprint with Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai. People didn't believe it could be done, to bring in kind of a world-class sponsor where most of the revenues to support the initial investment in building the venue is actually coming from sponsorship. In Asia, there's not as much of a culture of F&B or parking or some of these what we call ancillary revenues to support the viability of an arena. The majority of it comes down to the naming rights partner, and a lot of that is through trust and relationship and a strong pipeline of great content.
So as you say, you're much more interested in the venue and the whole experience, 2-hour smash and grab, because it's tough. The 2-hour smash and grab is tough, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not saying that Katy Perry's a smash and grab, but if you go to a sponsor and say she's on stage for 2 hours, it's hard to deliver value, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Esports, you hear some dream numbers coming from sponsors on esports.
We've been blown away by the demand by sponsors to get into esports. I mean, it is a very specific demo. They're 15 to 30-year-olds, mostly male, about 2/3 male, and pretty much any consumer brand you can think of, A, wants to get into this demo, and B, is having trouble in traditional ways of getting into them. Esports, I think, presents itself as a very obvious solution to that. You can do a lot with esports as well as a sponsor, like you were talking about, Malcolm, that they don't want just traditional advertising there, but you are, on a emotional level, you are there with your potential consumers in their most, I guess, passionate of moments, the things that they care most about. I mean, there's tons of young people all across Asia, all across the world, who esports is not just their primary form of entertainment, it's the only form of entertainment that they really care about. You're also there here in Southeast Asia, I think what's really relevant, you're there in potential star-making moments. A lot of the best gamers in the world are already from Asia, and in some cases from Southeast Asia. If you're a teenager who's talented at a game, you can aspire to become the best esports player in the world, whereas it's more of a stretch for you to think that you'll become LeBron James or Cristiano Ronaldo. So if you're there in those moments as a sponsor to say, wow, we were there when this new star was born. We were there when thousands of fans and millions that are watching from home are engaged with this form of entertainment that people truly and deeply care about. That's an incredibly powerful thing. So obviously there's some education process that's necessary for these sponsors, but I think you bring them to an event, they don't have to understand what's going on in the game. All they need to see is the fact that here's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 kids, millennials, screaming, and that's all that matters at the end of the day for them, I believe.
Very good.
Yeah.
As someone who has been to one esports game tournament, I can confirm you don't know what the hell's going on that screen. So tell me, who are the sponsors that are supporting esports in this part of the world?
So we divide them into endemic and non-endemic sponsors. The endemic ones are quite obvious, your PC brands, keyboard, mouse, headphone brands. You could probably even lump in energy drinks. Those have been there, they're always gonna be there. I think the ones that are just getting into it are non-endemic. The ones that we've found the most success in are telco, obviously, e-commerce, FMCG, food and beverage, both global, regional, and local brands. And it obviously depends on what kind of event you're doing or what kind of content you're creating, or if they want to even support an event versus a team or something like that. But I mean, nowadays we're seeing banks, insurance companies.
This guy's cutting your lunch, you know that.
I mean, look, these guys want to reach the young people, and For a lot of sponsors, GSC is more than just an events company. They are a solution to this problem of who are going to be our consumers for the next 5, 10, 50 years.
We're finding exactly that. I mean, we've got quite a lot of business around the world in working with esports rights holders in different places. The thing that you mentioned is that a lot of brands looking at esports haven't got a clue what it is. And so we
No
actually...
one does.
Well, a lot of people do, actually. They're much younger than you, though, Jasper. But they are... the brands need to have it explained to them, and they need to... But they want the same thing out of esports they want from any event, and seeing a real interaction. One of the things we did recently out of Germany with SAP, having helped them understand the world of esports, we helped them with a sponsorship with Team Liquid, and they then went away and came back with a process where they could help Team Liquid with their game analysis, and they built a story around that, around their sponsorship that they used in the international, which you'll know what that is. They didn't win the tournament, unfortunately, but it's a really good story of connecting the brand into the event and making it work for everybody.
Fantastic. Now, we've been talking about fans, and you're talking about the esports fans, and are fans getting value for events? What about the fan experience in Asia Pacific? Is it, are the stadia up for it? You mentioned that you did a very interesting thing in the fan space as well. I mean, maybe you can talk about. Yeah,
our Lagardère Sports in the States were hired last year to do a fan experience audit for the NFL. So we visited every single NFL venue at least twice during last season and went through all the different fan experience elements and came up with a report at the end of it. And what I said to Jasper the other day was the fact that the NFL are working so hard on their fan experience issues shows you the importance of it in terms of maintaining the value of what they do. And it's interesting. I mean, they scored themselves reasonably highly, as you would expect. But looking through the results of it, it's not rocket science. It's about doing the basics really well and really efficiently. And, so everything, as I was saying earlier, from ticket buying, the entry into the venue, having the convenience of things where and when you want them, whether that's food and drink, which plays a bigger part in the States than it does here. They do have the advantage of being able to invest massively in their venues. So you have, specific NFL new venues being built quite regularly. I was lucky enough to go to Atlanta last year and see their Halo Dome video screen, which is unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, it's worth just looking it up. But so they're able to do things at a totally different level. And bringing it back to Asia, one of the challenges here is that the venues generally, almost across the whole board, just are not at a level where they can offer that sort of fully engaged experience. And the challenge for us here in Asia is to find ways that we can begin to engage, or get fans engaged. The first thing, in a lot of cases, as we've sort of hinted at a bit, is actually getting them there in the first place. But I think increasingly these days, it's about providing entertainment in whatever form. One of the challenges with sports events is that it's not just music events or esports events, or it's everything else that people can do is competition to going to a sports event. So you've got to engage people enough so that they actually want to come to your event, and then you've got to give them a good experience when they come. And in the venues that we have mostly in Asia, that can be a challenge.
Who's getting it right? Which venues are getting it right? Mercedes-Benz Arena, of course, in Shanghai. Aside from the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai, which venues in Asia are getting it right?
Well, go ahead.
Go on.
I was just going to share a story about that. I mean, the reason why we were able to get Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai right is because, 10, 11 years ago, when we were introduced to kind of the local government in China who said, they wanted to build an arena for the World Expo in I think it was 2010 was the World Expo. And we said, well, that's interesting because we wanted to build an arena in Shanghai. And so the dialogue was very early on in partnering with the local government to say, why don't you build it in the way that we've built it in the West, which is fan first and hospitality first. And with that mindset, then you can build this great venue for the World Expo, but afterwards we can take it over together in partnership with the local government to commercialize it in a way that would actually generate a return for the government for their investment in building that arena. So it was kind of a new model, but it really was kind of the tip of what we see as the iceberg for Asia, where you have a lot of governments or a lot of developers that want to build a big venue for a specific reason. Be it Olympics, be it the other World Expo, or some an esports team, but may not have the experience of how do you do it in the right way that you can commercialize it long term and operate effectively, again with the fan in mind, and not just having it a place to put an event on, but really think about the ingress, egress, F&B, hospitality, partnership, inventory, and all of that. And that's what, for us at AEG, what we bring to the table. So that really, again, has proven the model that a Western company can come in, partner with local developers or local government agencies, and build a venue that, for the long term, makes money for everybody, but more importantly, provides international content or tier 1 content in Asia to be produced and for fans to then go and enjoy it.
So who's getting it right?
So, I would say, that's a long-winded way to say, that was the original question. I think there's definitely, if you look at the tier 1 cities, whether it be it like Manila, Singapore, Bangkok, Tokyo, Shanghai, Seoul, there's a lot more conversations now than we had before. I think each one of those cities might have 1 or 2 venues, but I do think there's room for more venues. And there's only going to be, that's why this conference is so successful, there's only more and more content that's going to be created here in Asia or imported here into Asia. And I think whether it's a stadium, a festival, an arena, or more of a club, we do see Asia as a big area of growth. So I would say, ask me that again in 5 years. And
Maybe
I'm
very
optimistic that we'll have a few more arenas.
It's
talk
okay.
about.
Don't worry.
Right depends on what is right. What are the objectives of the venue? We do a lot of work, obviously, here in Singapore with the Sports Hub, and regular content is a challenge here. But what the plan at Sports Hub has been is to make sure that when events are happening, a fully rounded experience is being delivered. So you look at the Rugby Sevens here, and the massive investment that was made into making that more than just the rugby in order to bring the community in. And a lot of peripheral activities were built around it. People aren't going to come, you're asking them to come for 6-7 hours in a day. People aren't these days going to come and sit in a seat for 6 or 7 hours. You have to give them more to do. So it's a matter of looking at what you're trying to achieve. Here, it's all with Sports Hub. It's about engaging the community as much as possible, and so you've got to look beyond your core sports content, and what can you do beyond that to do it.
Oscar, I've read a lot of headlines about esports venues being built, certainly in China and what have you. Is that a trend that you're seeing in your part of the world, in Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
What's your experience with venues?
Well, yeah, so yes, China, Vegas, plenty of other parts in the world have specialized esports arenas now. I think increasingly here in Southeast Asia, people are either literally building them as we speak or considering it. But most of them tend to be sort of for more, I guess, local or regional scale events. You're talking probably a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 seaters. And they're great because all the infrastructure is there, so you don't need to set up especially for esports, right? But you know, obviously for the events that we've done, we didn't have the luxury of having huge esports arenas, but it was okay. I mean, it doesn't take, you have to know what you're doing, but especially on the technical side and what the teams expect. But with any venue, whether it is a big arena, a big convention center, or something like that, or even a big ballroom, you can set it up. You know, what we want is basically a good venue that can seat the number of people that we expect. Because honestly, in all these tier 1 cities that you're talking about, Marshall, you can sell out probably 5,000–10,000 seats for esports competitions. You just need to put on the right event, get the right teams in. And something you were talking about earlier about what creates value for the fans. You know, I think what's special for me about esports anyway, compared to a lot of traditional forms of entertainment, is the stars, the players, they're not divas. You can actually go and interact with them. So if you're a fan, you can go to a signing session and chat for, you know, 30 seconds or a couple of minutes with your favorite player. You can go and directly up to a commentator or a host that you idolize, and you can actually get these moments, whereas in other forms of entertainment, that's pretty much impossible. So, you know, you're creating a huge amount of value for just the average fan. And that's, you know, a lot of these guys are not even going to other sporting events, whether due to lack of supply or they just don't care because they care about esports so much.
So you're saying the esports stars are very accessible?
Very much.
Where others in other industries may not be?
Very much so, especially if you, as I guess an event organizer or a league organizer, make the experience really good for them. Treat them like the stars that they deserve to be treated like. And they're going to open up and say, yeah, sure, we'll do training sessions with players, we'll do meet and greets, autograph sessions, stuff for sponsors, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, I think that's really, really special. And that creates value both for the ticket buyer, the viewer from home, and for the sponsor. Yeah,
I mean, we find a lot of that with the YouTube stars that we work with. They want to be accessible, they don't want to be inaccessible.
Sure.
Look, I know we're running short on time now, and we haven't even touched on technology and the experiences there and how technology can take events beyond the stadium. But very quickly, let's talk. What have you, the three of you, seen that might be coming over the horizon about the future experience, about tech, about whether it's VR, 180, 360, streaming, just streaming, you know, gaming's very famously streamed live. What's coming up that we might be talking about in a year's time?
I don't even think, I mean, for esports, I don't think streaming is even high tech, right? I mean, it's the default form of consumption of
so it's the norm?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, what excites me is, you know, things like VR experiences. Like, I mean, the people who are consuming esports are so tech savvy. They want to be part of the next wave of consuming things that people haven't before. So, you know, the potential of filming something in VR so that, you know, you get plugged into your VR set. It's as if you are there live in the arena. You can do all the things that people in the arena can do. AR is being tested on a number of esports events already. I mean, when you talk about how technology can aid the consumption of entertainment, there's nothing more suitable for it than esports.
Marshall?
Yeah, I think for us, speaking both wearing the promoter hat and also the venue hat, would be ticketing. I think ticketing is still being figured out in the West even as it relates to the secondary market and kind of the use of the data you can get, whether it's demographic data or, you know, buying habits or what have you, and kind of following the life cycle of that ticket as well, from the initial sale to the secondary market. All of that is kind of still being figured out in the West, and I think that there will be a time coming soon for Asia as well. Looking at mobile, Asia is almost a mobile-first economy already, and the habits of the people here probably adopted mobile before even the West. So I think if you think about a ticket, whether it's a QR code or a physical ticket, you can unlock a lot more value for everybody if it's a mobile ticket. And so I think I'm interested to see what's going on there. Obviously, it's fragmented. You've got China with the players there and Southeast Asia, and there's the language barriers as well. But for us, I think I'm just curious, really, how the ticketing world plays out in Asia, and whether you can have someone that comes in and kind of consolidates everybody in Asia, or if will be kind of specifically regionalized, whether Southeast Asia and then East Asia, or Japan versus Korea, all of that. I think that's very exciting.
Mal, final word.
I'm a bit of a skeptic about great technological changes. I don't think we'll be sitting here in 1 or 2 years with everybody who goes to an event doing something different to what they're doing today because of a particular piece of technology. I think there are going to be interesting developments in some of the games and the way the games are played themselves. And that's just from even beyond goal line technology to the next sort of level of all that sort of stuff. But we're even having a conversation with one group at the moment about a sport made of exoskeletons fighting each other. Later. I think the thing that'll happen sooner is when connectivity around stadiums is there, and the use of data around the fans and creating a really personalized experience for fans in and around an event. I think that sort of stuff, you can feel that we're going to get there much quicker than some great change.
Cool. So I could talk about this forever because it's what I do for a living, but what I'm getting from here is premium sales. Sponsorship still matters and probably matters more than ever, but you have to give them an experience, not just a logo, because they're a demanding, unreasonable bunch. It's about putting the fan first. It's for the fan of it. Tech does matter. Mobile matters, but really the live experience is what matters the most. And bringing everything together and to be able to deliver that whole 360 is what's going to continue to drive the live entertainment business. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to Mal, to Marshall, and to Oscar.